Hello, welcome to Intro to Character and Creature Design. My name is Eric Ryan. I work at Sony Santa Monica. I'll be taking you through the steps of creating a realistic and unique character. Um, we'll go through thumbnails, we'll go through rough images, a little basic lighting, just to get you warmed up for the class that comes after this, which is Character and Creature Design 1. So this course is all in kind of preparation for a more advanced class and to kind of get you warmed up between that. So I hope you look forward to it, and I'll try to give you all of my insight into the character and creature design process. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to Intro to Character and Creature Design. This is week 1, and for the first 4 weeks we're going to be concentrating on a humanoid character, and then the second 4 weeks is going to be about focusing on a creature design. So the first 4 weeks is going to be about creating and redesigning Mr. Freeze from Batman. The story behind Mr. Freeze is that he's a cryogenics researcher, and I think his wife either died or was going to die soon, and he basically froze her body to preserve it, and he wanted to use his knowledge of cryogenics to kind of put her in a stasis while he figured out the cure for her disease. So in his research, I don't know if it was, in his kind of preparation to preserve her body, but somewhere in there during his research, he got into an accident, and ultimately something happened where his body could only exist in extremely low temperatures. So he had to create a suit to keep him alive, that keeps his body in freezing temperatures, and that's essentially what his design is, and this kind of story is. So here you can see I've done a design of Mr. Freeze that is very kind of expected, one that you've seen before if you've looked up on Google any of his previous designs. And I kind of do this I kind of draw my initial thumbnails either consciously or subconsciously with the look that's already been done before, so that way I can look at it and make sure that I don't do that again. So it's kind of like my bouncing off point of what not to do, and then what this ends up doing, along with doing some research on this character story wise or look wise, is to inform me of this character, and give me some elements that I may draw from, but also to keep me from repeating a design that's already been done. That way I can create my own original design, and hopefully it's more informed than designs that have previously existed. So that being said, thumbnails, the purpose of them is to kind of allow you to come up with crazy shapes, just work very organically, and not be concerned about how well your drawing looks, and just kind of plot down ideas very quickly and very loosely, to see what works and what doesn't. So what I like about thumbnails is that there's a high level of experimentation, and through experimentation, you get originality. Um, when you're not willing to kind of ride on the edge or play with things a bit and kind of be free with how you think, then you're never going to come up with something that's kind of like out of the box. So you'll see here that as I progress in my thumbnails, they tend to get a lot more wild and a lot less expected, and that's kind of where I want to go. I want to ride that line. I want to go beyond what's expected or what's normal or what even works. I want to push that boundary as far as I can and then reel myself back in after I've reached that, kind of beyond, if you will. So it's all about kind of just observing, finding things out there that you may not have thought of, let your mind kind of be free, and kind of letting it relax a little bit, if that makes sense, and not being so concerned about making a good drawing. Uh, this character is I'm trying to um, give him a weapon, put tones in different areas. Um, Part of why I do things in black and white is to just break things up. You want to be able to not have things get monotonous. You don't want to have his whole body be very dark or very light. You want to use tones to break things up, and then this guy doesn't necessarily have to be a dark color. He could end up being light in the end. It's just kind of a way for you to break up the monotony of his look. Um, Still trying to remember what Carlos said to me. Don't come to me. He's a really good teacher, by the way. Um, so yeah, one thing you'll notice I don't do, and I'll continue this process, is I don't really use photos that much. Very, very rarely, and especially for thumbnails. I think, particularly for me, anyways, my opinion is that thumbnails, the kind of purpose of a thumbnail is to experiment and be organic and be very loose. And I think thumbnails, or for me, anyways, photos tend to inhibit that. I feel like I become too reliant on what any kind of shape or tone that's in that thumbnail. I just want to toss things out. I mean, for me, the purpose is to be free and not get hunkered down in one particular look or direction. Another thing is too, with what I do with my thumbnails is I really try to get a lot of variation. That's one of the main tenets for me. I used to get, ridiculed for that at my past job for not having enough variations. Like everything would look too similar. You notice the first two images here, Mr. Freeze images that I created, are very similar. And I'll go back and fix that and add little things. And you see how I go back to that image as well, like the second one. I know that it's too similar, and there's things I want to do to it to kind of move it forward so it doesn't feel like the same. So sometimes we'll go back to thumbnails and touch them up and see if there's something else there, especially ones that look too alike. Another thing, just on a technical level, you'll see that I'm using the Lasso tool to kind of help create shapes. And I've learned that the Lasso tool really kind of gives you cool, crisp-looking lines, but at the same time, I tend to use the which one is it? I don't know what it's called exactly. It's not the polygonal one. It's the free Lasso tool or whatever it is. The one that's more elliptical shaped. Just so I can get, it's almost like drawing a shape. It's very loose feeling, and so it gives me nice organic shapes that I've actually drawn. And then you can just fill it in, and as you fill it in, if you just kind of go kind of counter to the lines that you created with your Lasso tool, you'll get in like a perpendicular way, you'll get this cool kind of texture, very quick texture. The idea here with the third one was just like, hey, let's just be super crazy. Okay, it doesn't have to be in a human outfit necessarily. And I end up realizing later on that I'm supposed to be doing a humanoid character. So I kind of bring him back to Earth a little bit and try to have him follow the class a little bit more. So try to stick to the humanoid look. And I'm sorry, I want to apologize now because he does end up taking on somewhat of a mech quality. And I think the reason why is because based on his story that I told you, it just makes more sense. And so I ended up kind of abandoning just a human with basically like a scuba diving outfit or a neoprene outfit on that kind of conforms to his body. I put him in something that feels more like it could double as a stasis chamber and also a mech, or a stasis chamber and a armored outfit, or prosthesis. The fourth one, speaking of prosthesis, is I was thinking. I mean, if this guy got into an accident, maybe he lost limbs or he got disfigured or something. Like, let's take it as far as we can go. Based on the story, maybe he was able. The hospital was able to save his upper half, and that maybe that's part of what made him go insane, is not having some of his body left, and or not having major parts of his body left, and he had to kind of figure out a way to keep himself alive and mobile at the same time. So just going to the extremes, that's part of the fun of thumbnails, is like you get to really see and explore things you may not have thought of if somebody had said initially to you, hey, design Mr. Freeze. Most people, when they think of Mr. Freeze, just like myself, I think of the goggles, I think of a glass helmet, and then I think of whatever kind of strange outfit he's wearing, one of those 1950s Martian outfits with his little freeze ray gun to make him look like Mr. Freeze. So now we're getting into new territory for this guy. So there's a lot of things that I don't want to get too far into with when I talk about thumbnails, because there are a lot of design um, considerations to take in, to consider, and I think that for this class, I want to kind of keep things basic, and I want to keep things more um, revolved around you getting a lot of pencil mileage, you understanding the basics, and being very comfortable with that before you move on to a more advanced class. And thumbnails to me can be the most exciting part, because that's where, and the hardest part, because that's where most of the thinking happens. Um, and it's, you don't have to sit there and try to make a really, really nice drawing. It's all about being loose and quick. But later on you'll learn more about how to apply more advanced design ideas, and the other more advanced class, and and hopefully you'll be ready for it at that point. I have no idea what I'm doing here. This one is just like I'm making it like a flower vase or something. See, you can see though, like, this is a good example. I'm just creating stuff. I'm erasing it. I'm going back into it, trying to find shapes, not necessarily looking at it as, hey, I need to create a head. Hey, I need to create a body. Just making something random, seeing what works, seeing what part you like, seeing what part you don't. I kind of see a head in there. I kind of see a chest and a pelvis, but still, still kind of up in the air. But you can see, even based on these 5 here, that we're starting to evolve. We've definitely broken the unoriginal barrier, I think, when it comes to Mr. Freeze, because he's definitely doesn't look right now like any of the Mr. Freeze designs I've seen online, and most of them, I have to say, are very similar to each other. Here, I think I'm kind of going for a more heavier design, like, he's more of a brute archetype kind of body style. Very heavy arms, heavy chest, and shoulders. I was thinking, here is where I'm trying to make more sense out of everything, because I want him to be humanoid, but also I want him to feel like he's in the stasis chamber, and he's also in something that can, feel threatening. And so giving him the bulk to feel threatening, giving him a big bubble to kind of feel like, he's in some kind of stasis bubble, some kind of cryogenic bubble. And I was thinking, this one is floating. I think this particular design, like, he's floating. He's got like little jets on his pelvis to make him float, and that maybe he's kind of like the 4th design, where he just has an upper body, and doesn't necessarily need legs, since he has these little propulsion devices underneath him. But his design ends up feeling a little bit more relatable, a little bit more humanoid. kind of, you'll notice too, I'm putting down shadows just to kind of have them sit on something, sit in the world somehow. And also you can tell by how I place my shadows with certain things, that certain things are floating, certain things are not. So it gives you, and you immediately see what the purpose of the design is. For the thumbnails too, like I'm not spending a ton of time on each one, I mean, I wouldn't recommend spending more than 2 to 5 minutes on a thumbnail, just depending on how much, detail you're trying to get in there. But like, you really don't want to get a high level of detail. You notice I'm very zoomed out on the thumbnails. I'm not super close to them, and part of the reason, that's the main reason, is to not commit myself to noodling. I want to just at a very high level see what the shapes are, the basic shapes are, the general look, and if I get it and understand what I've created, and I kind of like that as its own little thumbnail, then I'll move on to the next one. But I don't really get further along than creating these kind of little lights or little lines. I let some of the texture that I've created accidentally, and any kind of like thinner lines to help you create the detail. And when if you were to zoom in to any of these thumbnails, it would look like crap if they don't already, and that's fine. I'm not necessarily going to be showing my thumbnails. Like when I'm working, I'm not necessarily thinking, hey, I'm going to put these in my portfolio, or I'm going to show, put these in a art of book or something like that. I mean, and even if they were in an art of book, or if they were in my portfolio, they'd still be small. I wouldn't, blow these things up to be a larger size. I mean, people know when they see thumbnails that they're meant to be ideas. And in a way, this is the kind of the I think the thumbnail stage is the core of what a concept artist should be about. Oh, I remember what Carlos said to me. It's just like, don't be, the difference between, Carlos said the difference between a concept artist and an illustrator is concept artist isn't afraid to make an ugly drawing. And that's what thumbnails are. They're fairly ugly drawings. I mean, they're very loose. They're not refined. And an illustrator is more like somebody who wants to really do one thing and make it a final image without, I have to say, more or less, without doing tons of iterations of it on it. I'm sure there'll be, some illustrators that will disagree with me, where they do tend to do some thumbnails, but I think for the most part, concept artists do lots and lots and lots of thumbnails until, the art director is very happy with what they're doing. And they choose a direction, I should say. So I think thumbnails are really the core of what a concept artist is and kind of should be about. And then from there, you can have fun and make rough images and then final images. When I say rough, I mean, you spend more time on it, and then you end up making your final render maybe from that. But this is the hard part, and it's also the most experimental and almost sometimes the most fun part is the thumbnail process. That's not to say that I'm not going to, we're not going to be spending time developing these things further in more detail. It's just that I think as anybody who wants to learn how to create cool and original ideas and possibly become a concept artist, you need to really be comfortable with this particular process, because this is where originality comes from. I mean, I can't tell you, like I was saying earlier, how many iterations of Mr. Freeze that look exactly the same, whether they're drawn by a very famous artist or they're drawn by a cartoon studio. It's like they all pretty much look like what you'd expect for a Mr. Freeze, and there's something there that you don't want to change too much, or else he's just going to look unrecognizable. But at the same time, unfortunately, I think a lot of studios tend to be way too safe and choose designs that are too similar. So another major important aspect of thumbnailing is silhouette. From far away, say you have this character far away, you do a long shot, or you see this guy, say on a movie poster, and he's lit from the back, and he's kind of just has a silhouette. We want your character to read, and the first read is always your silhouette, and your second read is breakup and tonal breakup, which is kind of what I'm doing here with the light dark, and shape differences, and then you have your third read, which is your high detail. You get in there and you really spell everything out. So first read is the most important, because if you can't read your character from a silhouette point of view or from a distance, it's not going to be memorable. It's not going to be recognizable, and those things are very important if you're trying to, especially when you're trying to do a main character. Like, look at Batman's silhouette. Silhouette is very recognizable. Look at the silhouette for Alien, from Alien. Aliens. Very recognizable silhouette. So that's huge. You got to make sure your silhouette reads and that it's very clear, and that it supports what the character is about. For this guy, this little glass helmet, like if you look at the very first one, that's kind of a clear Mr. Freeze, recognizable Mr. Freeze look. And all of these have, for the most